It is 2:15 in the afternoon. The California sun is absolutely blinding. A man walks out the front glass doors of a police station holding a brown paper bag with a sandwich inside.
He is completely free to go home. All he has to do is walk down the sidewalk.
Right. But instead he walks straight across the police department's own asphalt parking lot. He grabs the door handle of an out-of-service cruiser, climbs into the back seat, and pulls the heavy door shut.
And he will literally never open it again.
You absolutely have to stick around until the end of this discussion to hear the unbelievable, catastrophic resolution to this 72-hour nightmare. We are Mike and Abby, and welcome to Wild Crime Podcast. We are officially done with boring, slow-burn true crime. We're tearing into the most baffling cases on Earth, untangling the lies, and dropping you right in the middle of the madness.
Whether you are on a long drive, crushing a workout, or just feeling a little bored, we are here to walk you through the mystery and make your next hour incredibly thrilling.
So to properly understand this investigation into the source material, we have to establish the origin of the timeline. And that starts on a Friday.
Right, specifically Friday evening, March 20th, 2026.
Yeah, we were in Azusa, California. It's this city nestled right up against the San Gabriel Mountains. And a 37-year-old man named Eric Valencia is behind the wheel of a car.
And he gets pulled over by the Azusa Police Department, which, initially this just presents as your standard run-of-the-mill traffic enforcement action.
Yeah, the officers on patrol, they observe a vehicle being operated erratically. We're talking swerving, crossing lines, suggesting significant driver impairment. So they light him up, they pull him over, and they walk up to the vehicle.
But the second the officer leans down to look through the driver's side window, the entire complexion of this incident permanently shifts into something way more serious.
Because there are kids sitting in the back seat of that vehicle.
Instantly, this goes from a routine DUI stop to a felony child endangerment investigation. I mean, the stakes just go through the roof.
Absolutely. And the body-worn camera footage from that Friday night, it captures the stark reality of Valencia's physical state. His speech is heavily slurred.
Oh yeah, his motor coordination is completely shot. He's fumbling. And when the officers ask him the standard baseline question, like how much have you had to drink today, he gives them this answer that just defies all the physical evidence right in front of them.
He looks at them and claims he only had, quote, one beer at 10 in the morning.
Which, just based on basic human biology, is physically impossible given how he is presenting to these cops.
Right, and the preliminary breathalyzer results absolutely prove he's lying. His blood alcohol content, his BAC, registers at approximately 0.16%.
Which is wild. In the state of California, the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle is 0.08%. So he is exactly double the legal limit.
And he is piloting a 2-ton machine with vulnerable children in the back. I mean, just think about that for a second.
It's terrifying. But to really grasp how this entire weekend unravels, we have to pause and analyze the psychology and the physiology of this specific moment on the side of the road.
Yeah, and let's be super clear here. We are absolutely not trying to excuse his behavior. Driving impaired with kids is a catastrophic display of hubris.
Yeah.
It is an unforgivable, fatal mistake.
Exactly. But we have to understand where Valencia's mind and body are functioning right now. He actually volunteers to the officers that he is a chronic alcoholic.
Which is such a weird flex during a traffic stop. Like, why volunteer that?
Well, he uses that piece of information as an excuse, He's attempting to explain away why a breath test might show alcohol in his system. Like, oh, I just have alcohol in me all the time.
That detail is crucial, though, because it tells us his physiological baseline is entirely conditioned by long-term, severe chemical dependency.
Yeah, his response to the police is fascinating, purely from a psychological standpoint. It is pure manipulation, right? But it's also this desperate level of self-delusion.
When I was reading the source material on that detail, it immediately reminded me of, like, a guy at a casino.
Oh, how so?
Like a guy drowning in thousands of dollars of debt, standing at the table, trying to convince the pit boss he is completely solvent by waving around a single $10 bill. It's just absurd.
That is a perfect way to look at it. He is at double the legal limit, slurring his words, barely able to stand, and he genuinely thinks he can talk his way past armed police officers with a story about a single morning beer.
How does someone even function at double the legal limit unless their body is just so deeply dependent that toxicity has effectively become their normal everyday state.
Well, that is exactly the biological mechanism at play here. When we talk about chronic alcoholism, we are talking about a fundamental rewiring of the brain's chemistry.
Right, it physically changes how the brain operates.
Exactly. The human brain operates on a balance of neurotransmitters. You have glutamate, which acts like the brain's accelerator, making you alert and active. And you have GABA, which acts like the brakes, calming the nervous system down.
Okay, so gas, pedal, and brakes.
Right. And alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, meaning it massively amplifies the GABA, the brakes, and it completely suppresses the glutamate, the accelerator.
So it's pushing the brakes down hard.
Yeah. And over years of heavy drinking, Valencia's brain has physically adapted to this constant flood of depressants. To keep him conscious and walking around, his brain has down-regulated its GABA receptors and massively ramped up its glutamate production just to achieve a basic baseline of operation.
So his brain is basically stomping on the gas pedal at all times just to counteract the fact that the alcohol is constantly riding the brakes.
Precisely. His body is steeped in alcohol just to maintain homeostasis. But what happens when an individual with that level of profound dependency is suddenly cut off?
Which is exactly what occurs the second those handcuffs click shut on his wrists.
Exactly. The police arrest him, they pull him out of his vehicle, and they transport him to the Azusa City jail. By taking him into custody, the police are essentially forcing his body into a sudden, unmanaged, and incredibly violent detoxification process.
Because the alcohol, the brakes, is suddenly gone.
But his brain is still stomping on the accelerator. The nervous system suddenly rebounds and goes into absolute overdrive.
And this biological crisis is going to be incredibly critical as we push forward into the timeline.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. When you hear a suspect with the BAC double the legal limit claim they only had one drink at 10 in the morning, do you think it's pure, calculated manipulation to avoid a charge? Or do you think their dependency is so deep they actually believe their own lies?
Because looking at the interaction, there is this eerie, terrifying disconnect from reality.
Yeah, there really is. So he is officially arrested for DUI and felony child endangerment. He is processed, taken to the Azusa City Jail, and he is locked in a cell for the entire weekend.
And I mean, Eric survived his weekend behind bars, but as you are about to hear, the real danger didn't start until the police opened the front doors and let him walk free.
So let's fast forward to Monday afternoon, March 23rd.
Okay. Valencia has been locked inside a concrete cell for over 48 hours at this point.
Right, 48 hours of forced, involuntary detox, no alcohol, just the harsh fluorescent lights of a city jail, the constant noise of the facility, institutional food, and his own biology just screaming at him.
His brain chemistry is completely misfiring by now. But on Monday afternoon, the administrative machinery of the justice system finally processes his release.
And according to the official statements later issued by Azusa Police Chief Rocky Wenrick, at the exact time of his release, Valencia showed no overt signs of medical distress.
Which is wild to me. Like, he wasn't physically combative.
No, he wasn't screaming, he wasn't hallucinating in a way that alarmed the staff. They basically said he looked fine.
The jail deputies process his paperwork, they hand him back his personal property, and they provide him with a standard jail lunch in a brown paper bag.
Which is a common courtesy for inmates who are released around standard meal times. So the front doors of the station slide open and he walks out into the bright Southern California sun.
And the exterior surveillance cameras mounted on the Azusa Police Department capture this exact moment in chilling, high-definition detail.
Yeah, we have a crystal clear view of him. He walks out of the building. He is, for all intents and purposes, a totally free man.
But he just stands there. He surveys the parking lot. He doesn't walk toward the street to hail a cab. He doesn't start making his way down the sidewalk toward home.
Instead, he walks directly over to a specific area of the parking lot designated for vehicle maintenance. He approaches a vehicle identified in the logs as Unit 37.
And Unit 37 is not just a regular civilian car. It is an out-of-service 2025 or 2026 Ford Police Interceptor utility.
Right. It is a large SUV specifically built and heavily modified for law enforcement operations.
The surveillance video shows Valencia walking right up to the rear passenger side of this massive vehicle. He reaches out, grabs the exterior handle of the rear door, and just pulls.
And it's completely unlocked. The door just swings right open.
He climbs into the back seat, carrying his belongings and his jail lunch, and he pulls the heavy door shut behind him.
Wait, what was going through his head? I have to stop you there because I am completely baffled by this behavior.
I know, it makes no sense on paper.
If he just spent 3 days locked inside a concrete cell, surrounded by police officers, wouldn't a police car be the absolute last place on Earth he'd want to be?
You would think so. It defies every single survival instinct of a newly freed person.
If you just got out of jail, you want to get as far away from law enforcement as humanly possible. Why on earth would he voluntarily get back into a cop car parked in their own lot?
Behaviorally, it is incredibly jarring. On the surface, it makes zero logical sense. But if we analyze the profound psychological and physiological trauma of the last 48 hours, a really grim, terrifying logic begins to emerge.
We have to remember the biological state of his brain right now. He is in the throes of acute alcohol withdrawal.
Right. His nervous system is hyperactive. He is likely experiencing severe anxiety, probably uncontrollable physical tremors, and extreme photosensitivity.
Meaning his eyes are painfully sensitive to the bright afternoon sun after being under dim or artificial indoor lights all weekend. Plus, he has no immediate transportation and no housing lined up.
So his brain is basically redlining. He is overwhelmed by the sheer volume of sensory input the second he steps outside.
Exactly. And in that state of overwhelming vulnerability and physical sickness, a person can experience a psychological phenomenon known as learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness.
Yeah, it is a psychological regression to a sheltered, contained environment. After spending 3 days in a cell where his movements were restricted and his environment was tightly controlled, the chaotic, bright, noisy outside world feels unbearable.
Oh, wow. So to his confused, withdrawing brain, the dark-tinted back seat of that vehicle might have simply represented a quiet, shaded place.
Exactly. A temporary sanctuary where he could just sit down, eat his sandwich in peace, and hide from the overwhelming stimuli of the outside world before figuring out his next move.
You might think, okay, I can sort of understand that. He is exhausted, he sits down for 5 minutes to eat his lunch, then he intends to open the door and walk home.
But we need to look at the mechanics of this specific vehicle because that door was never, ever going to open.
Yeah, to understand why this vehicle instantly became an inescapable tune, we have to look deeply into the highly specialized aftermarket modifications made to the Ford Police Interceptor utility.
This is such crucial context. When a police department purchases one of these vehicles from Ford, it doesn't arrive ready for patrol.
Right, it is basically just a heavy-duty civilian SUV at first.
The department then sends that vehicle to an upfitter. An upfitter is a specialized mechanic or engineering firm that installs the light bars, the sirens, the complex computer systems, the weapon racks.
And most importantly for our discussion, the detainee containment system. This vehicle is intentionally engineered to be a one-way valve.
I was looking into the automotive forums and the Reddit threads, specifically dedicated to mechanics who work on these interceptors, and the engineering logic is terrifying if you don't know it's there.
Right. According to the upfitters, the exterior door handles function perfectly normally.
That is a deliberate design choice, so officers can quickly throw a combative suspect into the backseat from the outside without fumbling with locks.
That's why Valencia was able to just walk up, pull the handle, and climb right in. The outside operates exactly like a normal car, but the inside...
The interior of that rear passenger compartment is an entirely different world. It is stripped of all human agency.
When the upfitters modify the rear compartment, they completely sever the physical linkage connecting the interior door handle to the actual locking mechanism inside the door panel.
Wait, really? They just break the connection?
Yeah. In some models, the handle is physically still attached to the door, but if you pull it, it just moves freely. It does absolutely nothing. It is just a dead, useless piece of plastic.
Wow. And in other configurations, the upfitters implement specialized, permanent child safety locks. But we need to be clear, this isn't like the little plastic switch you flip with your thumbnail on the edge of your minivan door.
Right. Modifying these interceptors often requires specialized tools to prevent suspects from tampering with them. I watched a source video from a mechanic on YouTube detailing these exact modifications, and he explained that to bypass these specific locking mechanisms, you need a tool called a T30 Torx screw.
And for those unfamiliar, a Torx screw has a highly specific star-shaped pattern. It is specifically utilized in manufacturing and security environments precisely to prevent unauthorized tampering.
You cannot manipulate it with a coin or a key or a standard flathead screwdriver.
Yeah.
Unless Valencia happened to have a specialized mechanics tool belt hidden inside his brown paper lunch bag, That panel was absolutely never coming off.
Sometimes the upfitters do install a manual override switch for emergency use, but its placement is diabolical if you are the one trapped inside.
Yeah, it is located entirely flush on the inside edge of the door frame itself.
Meaning, the split second that door swings on its hinges and clicks shut into the frame, that override switch is completely buried and sealed off by the solid metal chassis of the car. It is physically inaccessible.
When you describe the mechanics of this, it is bizarre. It reminds me exactly of how deep-water lobster traps work. Have you ever seen the design of those?
Like the wire cages.
Yeah, the entrance is this wide, welcoming, woven funnel. It is the easiest thing in the world for the lobster to swim into. But once it passes the threshold, the funnel narrows to a point suspended in the middle of the cage. It is physically impossible to swim back out.
That is such a haunting comparison. That Ford Interceptor wasn't a car anymore. It was a trap operating on the exact same principles.
It is effortless to slip inside. You just pull the exterior handle and sit down. But the second that heavy door clicks shut, the environment fundamentally alters its state. It becomes physically impossible to exit.
And the confinement doesn't stop at the door handles. The upfitters also completely disable the power windows in the rear compartment.
Right, the switch on the door panel is the dummy switch.
Right.
The glass is permanently rolled up and locked into the frame.
And separating the back seat from the front cabin is a reinforced partition. This isn't just a flimsy wire mesh screen like in the old movies. It is a heavy-duty divider constructed from solid steel and high-impact polycarbonate.
Which is the exact same material used in bullet-resistant glass. It is virtually indestructible to human force. The entire rear compartment is a literal high-security cell on wheels.
Which naturally forces us to ask a glaring, unbelievable question regarding systemic protocols. Why on earth is a highly modified, high-security vehicle deliberately engineered to permanently trap human beings left completely unlocked, unmonitored, and accessible in an open exterior parking lot?
It represents a staggering level of institutional negligence. The protocols for securing a detainee transport vehicle should be airtight, precisely because the vehicle is so incredibly dangerous.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Would you have ever noticed these red flags? Would you ever, in a million years, assume the back of a parked empty SUV could lock you in permanently?
Most people wouldn't even consider the possibility.
The steel and glass of the Interceptor trapped his body. But what happened to his mind over the next 3 days is the most terrifying part of this entire mystery.
Because we have to analyze the environmental forensics now. We have to look at the brutal physics and biology of what happens inside a sealed vehicle over a continuous 72-hour period.
Valencia enters the car on Monday afternoon. He is not discovered until Thursday morning. During those 3 days, the weather in Azusa was relatively mild.
If we look at the meteorological data for March 23rd through the 26th of 2026, the high temperatures hovered right around 70 to 73 degrees Fahrenheit.
But anyone who has ever parked a car in the sun knows that 70 degrees outside absolutely does not equal 70 degrees inside the car.
Not even close. A sealed vehicle with closed windows operates as a highly efficient, highly lethal solar collector.
It is governed by the laws of thermodynamics, specifically the greenhouse effect. During the day, shortwave solar radiation from the sun passes effortlessly through the glass windows of the Interceptor.
This shortwave radiation strikes the dark interior surfaces of the vehicle. The dark vinyl seats, the black plastic dashboard, the rubber floor mats.
These materials absorb the solar energy and heat up incredibly rapidly. Once heated, these dark surfaces begin to radiate that energy back outward into the cabin.
But here's the fatal catch. They radiate it as long-wave infrared heat. And long-wave infrared heat cannot pass back through the glass and polycarbonate windows.
Exactly. The glass acts as a one-way mirror for thermal radiation. The heat gets trapped inside the cabin. It accumulates so fast.
The air volume inside the rear of an SUV is relatively small, so the ambient temperature spikes aggressively.
Studies on vehicular heat stroke show that even with an incredibly mild outside temperature of 70 degrees, the microclimate inside that sealed police cruiser would quickly push internal temperatures to between 95 and 108 degrees within just an hour or two.
He is trapped inside a literal oven. He has his brown paper bag with his jail lunch, but the police records and the source material make absolutely no mention of him possessing a sufficient water supply.
So you have a man sitting in a dark, enclosed space, baking in 100-degree heat for 3 days.
His body is desperately trying to cool itself down through sweating, which rapidly accelerates massive heat exhaustion and profound systemic dehydration.
And that thermal crisis is just the environmental assault. We have to layer the brutal biological reality of his severe alcohol withdrawal directly on top of it.
Remember the timeline we set up. The 48 to 72-hour window following the sudden cessation of heavy alcohol intake is universally recognized by medical professionals as the absolute peak danger zone for alcohol withdrawal syndrome, or AWS.
This is the precise window when the most severe, life-threatening neurological symptoms manifest. We are talking about extreme tachycardia, where his resting heart rate races uncontrollably, putting immense strain on his cardiovascular system.
We are talking about severe, uncontrollable tremors, profuse, drenching sweating as his nervous system misfires, which is catastrophically compounding the dehydration caused by the heat of the vehicle.
And most dangerously, this 48 to 72-hour window is the prime time for withdrawal seizures and the onset of delirium tremens.
Delirium tremens, often referred to as the DTs, is a severe medical emergency. It involves profound, terrifying confusion.
It involves vivid, horrifying visual and auditory hallucinations. It represents a complete and total break from objective reality.
His brain is essentially short-circuiting, misfiring on every single cylinder, while his physical body is simultaneously baking in the trapped solar heat.
But here is the one detail from the source material that completely stops me in my tracks. It is the single most baffling, frustrating behavioral quirk of this entire case.
Oh, the phone.
Yes. When they finally found his body on Thursday morning, investigators searched him. They discovered that Eric Valencia had a cell phone in his pocket.
It was fully charged. It was completely functional. He had a strong signal.
He could have dialed 911 at any second during those first few hours, but he never made a single call.
We have to analyze the fatal flaw in his logic here, because the digital forensics prove he never attempted to call for help. Not to the police, not to his family.
Why? How does a man slowly dying of heat stroke and dehydration choose not to use the literal lifeline sitting right in his pocket?
To understand this, we have to frame his decision-making process through the lens of fear, manipulation, and the unique psychology of a person who has just been released from the machinery of the criminal justice system.
I know half the people listening right now are practically screaming at their devices, wondering why he didn't just smash a window with his shoe or make a 2-second phone call. I totally get it. It is incredibly frustrating to hear.
But I challenge that frustration with this question. What does that silence say about his state of utter panic and his perception of the police?
He knows he just got out of jail on a felony child endangerment charge. He knows he has a massive, potentially life-ruining legal battle ahead of him.
And that context is everything. Did he actively avoid calling for help because he was absolutely terrified of catching a brand new felony charge?
Think about his internal monologue. If he dials 911 and says, "Hey, I'm trapped in the back of one of your cruisers in your parking lot," does his panicked, withdrawing brain tell him that the police are just going to open the door, slap the cuffs back on him, and charge him with breaking and entering?
Or trespassing? Or attempting to steal a police vehicle? For someone caught in the grinding gears of the criminal justice system, the visceral fear of catching a new case and going back to a concrete cell can completely override basic common sense and rational survival protocols.
I hear that, but surely the fear of catching a new trespassing charge is better than literally burning to death in the back of an SUV. At what point does the biological animal survival instinct override the fear of cops?
He must have rationalized a third option. He probably looked out the window and thought, I'm parked directly in front of the Azusa police station. It is broad daylight. Dozens of officers and staff work in this building.
Right. Someone is inevitably going to walk through this parking lot to go to their car. Someone is going to see me sitting here through the window. I just have to wait.
He was gambling with his own life, betting that human traffic and basic visibility would save him before the heat and the withdrawal killed him.
But he drastically, fatally underestimated the institutional apathy and the blind spots of the environment he was trapped in. His fear of the system temporarily overrode his survival instinct, and he waited too long to make a move.
Eventually, the brutal combination of the 100-degree heat, the extreme cellular dehydration, and the peak onset of alcohol withdrawal syndrome took away his physical and mental ability to choose.
Once the delirium set in, or the seizures began, he rapidly lost the cognitive ability to even recognize the piece of glass and plastic in his pocket as a cell phone, let alone use it as a tool for survival.
While Valencia was fighting a terrifying losing battle against the heat and his own biology out in the parking lot, You have to hear the unbelievable, frustrating interaction happening just yards away, right inside the air-conditioned lobby of the police station.
Because while he is slowly dying inside Unit 37, his family realizes he is completely unreachable.
On Tuesday, March 24th, less than 24 hours after he originally climbed into the back of the Interceptor, his sister-in-law, Julia McCormick, and other concerned family members physically travel to the Azusa Police Department.
They walk right up to the front desk. They speak to the personnel on duty. They state clearly that Eric was released the previous afternoon, but he never made it home, he isn't answering his phone, and they are incredibly worried.
They want to officially file a missing persons report.
And what do the police do with this desperate family standing in their lobby? According to the family statements, the police do not take them seriously.
They blow them off. They offer vague reassurances. Think about the fundamental basic protocol of a missing persons investigation. If someone is reported missing, what is the literal first step any competent detective or officer is trained to take?
The foundational step of any investigation is to establish the last known location of the subject and build a chronological timeline moving forward from that exact point.
Exactly. And Eric Valencia's last known location was literally the lobby they were currently standing in. The police department was the last place he was seen alive.
All the desk sergeant or the investigating officer had to do was pull up their own exterior surveillance footage from 24 hours prior.
If they had spent 10 minutes reviewing the tape from Monday afternoon, they would have watched a crystal clear video of Eric Valencia walking out of their glass doors, walking across their asphalt, and climbing directly into Unit 37.
They could have walked outside and saved his life right then and there.
But they didn't review the tape. They failed to execute a basic check of the perimeter of their own facility.
They failed to review the security cameras that are positioned specifically to monitor their own high-value, taxpayer-funded assets. This represents the absolute pinnacle of institutional hubris and apathy.
The standard operating protocols for handling a missing persons report were completely ignored. And perhaps even more shockingly, the basic security protocols for the motor pool were completely non-existent.
Chief Wenrick later admits to the press that Unit 37 was left unlocked in the lot pending mandatory maintenance.
A specialized vehicle, designed explicitly to be an inescapable mobile prison cell, a vehicle parked in an unsecured exterior lot accessible to the public, was just left completely unlocked because personnel couldn't be bothered to secure the doors before it was scheduled to go into the shop.
It is maddening. I read that, and it immediately brought up an image in my head of a lighthouse keeper.
Oh, how so?
Imagine a lighthouse keeper standing at the top of the tower, squinting through a brass spyglass, desperately searching the distant ocean horizon for a shipwreck, completely oblivious to the fact that his own living room at the base of the tower is actively engulfed in flames.
That is exactly what this is. How does a highly secure, modernized police facility have a lethal, unmonitored blind spot directly in front of its own front doors?
The grim reality of the eventual discovery highlights just how profound and deadly this blind spot was. The timeline advances to Thursday morning, March 26th.
It is approximately 5 in the morning. The sun is just starting to come up. Valencia has been sealed inside that Interceptor for nearly 72 hours.
Over those 3 days, the interior temperatures have spiked into the hundreds and fallen back down 3 separate times. His body has endured the absolute maximum catastrophic limits of dehydration and untreated alcohol withdrawal.
He is finally found. But he isn't found by an emergency rescue team. He isn't found by a sharp-eyed detective who finally decided to take the family seriously and review the security tape.
He is found entirely by accident. He is discovered by a low-level department employee who simply grabbed the keys to Unit 37 because they wanted to move the car to run it through a routine car wash.
The employee walks out into the cool morning air, approaches Unit 37, looks through the tinted rear glass, and sees Valencia's unresponsive body slumped in the back seat.
Emergency services are called, but it is far too late. The initial reports from the medical examiners who arrive on the scene indicate that there are no obvious external signs of trauma.
There is no evidence of foul play, no blunt force injuries, no violence. The inescapable mechanical trap of the vehicle, combined with the brutal environmental heat and the violent rebellion of his own physiology, killed him.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment, pause for a second, and ask yourself, what will you demand of your local institutions if they ever look you in the eye and tell you not to worry about a missing family member?
Because Julia McCormick and the Valencia family did exactly what society tells you to do. They trusted the system to help them, and the system completely catastrophically failed them on every single conceivable level.
The fallout from this discovery has triggered a massive, multi-tiered, bureaucratic, and legal response. The Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner took custody of the body and is finalizing the complex autopsy and toxicology reports.
They need to determine the exact physiological mechanism of death. Whether it was purely the environmental heat stroke, a fatal cardiac event induced by the withdrawal seizures, or a synergistic combination of both factors.
Additionally, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has opened an active review of the incident to determine if there is a legal basis for criminal negligence charges against any specific personnel within the Azusa Police Department.
And the pressure doesn't stop there. The Azusa Police Department has been forced by public outcry to hire the JL Group, which is a private third-party investigative firm, to conduct an independent probe.
They are tasked with figuring out how a secure, modified interceptor was left unlocked in a public lot, and how a human being remained completely undetected on highly surveilled police property for 3 days.
Valencia's family, who is now represented by the civil rights attorney Michael Carrillo, is demanding the immediate, unedited release of every single second of surveillance tape from that 72-hour window.
They want the public to see exactly what the police were doing while Eric was slowly dying in their parking lot.
Which brings us to the core, chilling reality of this entire case. As a modern society, we invest heavily in these impenetrable, heavily fortified machines and systems.
We spend millions of taxpayer dollars to build rolling steel vaults with polycarbonate glass. We install high-definition, multi-angle surveillance networks. We create rigid, bureaucratic protocols.
All under the banner of keeping the public safe. We engineer these incredibly efficient machines to police and control human behavior.
But when human empathy, basic intellectual curiosity, and simple everyday oversight are completely removed from the equation,
when a mechanic forgets to click a door lock, or a desk sergeant ignores the genuine panic of a desperate family,
the systems don't care. The machines just keep running on their own cold, mechanical logic.
So if the human element fails, we are left with a terrifying question. Who protects the vulnerable from the very machines we built to police them?
All right, if we made your drive, your workout, or your downtime even a little bit better today, do us a massive favor. Whether you are watching on YouTube, streaming on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, or literally anywhere else, hit that follow or subscribe button right now. We drop episodes like this frequently, bringing you the most fascinating cases in the most interesting way possible. Lock in, because you do not want to miss the crazy mysteries we have queued up for next time. See you then.